All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, before I get started with this lesson, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect, pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. To you I say shalom. This is the brother Yeshaya coming at you again through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Back with another video. Not sure what I'm going to entitle this one. Something along the lines of being tested as a disciple. But Lord willing, this be an edifying and exhorting video. Not going to make it too long. Lord willing, just hit the points and keep it moving. But we'll see how the spirit goes. But we're going to start off with Luke 14 and verse 26. It says, "If any man come to me and hate not his father and mother and wife and children and brethren and sisters, yea, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple." Right? So when you go into this word hate, this word for hate doesn't mean, you know what I'm saying? Well, the word there is hate, but the precept, the context that this is referring to means to love less, right? So pretty much you gotta love your family less than this truth, then Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. You know, this takes precedence. This should be on your number one list on your goal to try to attain, right? To try to love, essentially, right? This takes precedence. This truth takes precedence over everything else in your life. Everything else should revolve around this truth, right? Now, it doesn't say that you can't love your father. It doesn't say that you can't love your mother, your brother, your sister, your children, your wife, right? Of course, you love them. You don't hate them. But you got to love the Father and Yahweh Shah more than you love them. You got to be willing to make those sacrifices, right, in order to please Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahweh Shai. You got to be willing to turn your back on your family, on your loved ones, on friends, in order to please the Lord. If those two things conflict, you got to cancel one out. And the one you got to cancel are pretty much those in this world. Again, the Most High takes precedence over everything, right? Because ultimately, if you continue on with the people here in this world, your family, your loved ones, they're going to take you out of the spirit. They're going to pull you back into the world, right? And you're going to be back to being a dry bone as you once was. And we know what happens when you draw back into the world. The scriptures talk about how the Most High or Yahweh Shah will take no pleasure in you. And essentially, you'll be destroyed. But this all comes into play with this lesson that I have here, going into the discipleship and being tested, right? And also, when you come into this thing, know what you're involved in, But this is Luke 14 and verse 27. It says, "And whosoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple." You see, so there's a cross that you got to bear. Every brother has his own cross, has his own troubles, has his own things that they deal with on their personal lives, that they have to deal with, that they have to, go through with. Of course, you have brothers to help you, but at the end of the day, you got to carry that cross on your own. You know what I'm saying? Every man has to carry his own weight. You can't be like, oh, that this cross is too heavy, I can't do it. Or you can't ask the Lord to lighten the load up for you. Otherwise, you ain't gonna serve him. Nah, man, you got to carry that cross no matter how heavy it is for you. Right? Again, every brother has his own weight, has their own cross that they have to bear. So when you get to the finish line, you can say that you did it. You didn't cheat. You didn't, because ultimately the scriptures say, if you come up some other way, you be considered as a thief and a robber. So if you never carried your cross and you think you're at the finish line, at the end you're gonna be found out to be a cheater, to be a liar, to be a deceiver. And ultimately, you didn't deceive the Most High, you deceived yourselves, right? But my point being is that coming into this thing, you're going to be faced with certain challenges. You're going to be faced with adversity. You're going to be faced with, temptations and things that is going to try to take you out the way. That all comes part of bearing that cross, right? That all comes part with enduring, you know? Some brothers have physical ailments. Some brothers have mental, dealing with mental demons, dealing with just variety of things, people coming up against you, right? You're at work and then demon be hopping on people to try to get you into trouble or whatever, or it's various manners that uh, uh you get. Pretty much adversity will come your way, right? Because in this world, you got to understand that this world is contrary to Yahweh Shem Yahushua. So Satan is using these people as vessels to come up against the man of the Lord. Let me get this real quick. Isaiah 59:15, it says, Yea, truth faileth, and he that departed from evil maketh himself a prey. Right? So once you depart from evil, once you decide to get your act together and come and serve the Lord, you got to understand that essentially you making yourself a target to these people, these spirits out here, man. Right? Satan now has you in his sights, and Satan's good with it too, man. He knows what you like, he knows what you don't like, he knows your weaknesses. This man has a whole statistic on you of how to break you down, but ultimately it's the Lord that allows him to do what he does, right? To break it down a bit, in order to build you back up. Because when we come up, we come up and we come up all crooked, all, just think of it like a plant. When we grow up, we didn't grow up, fully rooted in. We didn't grow up, being nourished properly. So we come up all crooked. So the Most High has to come in and cut us down a bit so we can come up straight. So we can, rectify. With a tree, sometimes you gotta tie it to a pole, tie it down so it can come up straight. When it's a sapling, you got the Most High's doing that to us in a sense, in a way, right? Cutting off our branches, trimming off some of the stuff that the tree don't need, that'll pretty much inhibit its growth, right? So again, these are all things to take into consideration whenever you're going through these troubles or going through temptation or going through whatever it is that you're going through. Take into consideration that these are just things that we have to go through just to be purified even more, to be tested, right? Me and the brother Yawan, we went to a lesson going into pretty much how men are like trees, right? But at one point in that lesson, we mentioned how trees, the reason why trees get that thick, them thick branches or that thick root or that thick trunk is because it's been tested by the wind. You have certain storms that come by or certain wind, whatever miles per hour wind comes and hits that thing or hits that tree. And as a sapling, it's being swayed back and forth, but over the years, it starts to develop that endurance. That's essentially how the Most High is dealing with us, right? He's hardening us to prepare us for these times that we're coming into. Because we're entering into a time like no other. No other time that's been in history can be comparable to these days that we're coming into, right? Now, yeah, we do use things like the plagues of Egypt, 70 AD, certain things like that. But once Jacob's trouble comes to full effect, we're going to really find out, how bad it really is going to be. right? But at the end of the day, the men of the Lord, they're going to be taken care of, right? As it says in Isaiah 65, right? My servant shall eat, my servant shall drink, my servant shall sing for joy of heart, right? So again, the prophets, the men of the Lord, the elect, they're going to be taken care of in that time. But it's still going to be shit that we're going to see out here that's going to, you know, try to sway our spirit. You know what I'm saying? Test us, you know? And it's happening right now as we speak. Brothers being tested, brothers being tried, man. Tried and refined, you know? Now, let me finish this out, Salakia. Isaiah 59:15. Yea, truth faileth, but he that departed from evil maketh himself a prey, right? So you become a prey once you depart from this wicked world. Once you depart from wickedness, you don't partake in the what they call the holy day or the holidays. You don't partake in eating pork. You don't partake in a lot of the things that you see people doing. So you pretty much stand out. And even through the spirit, your own, it's almost like a aura that you start to embody, that pretty much makes these people start to despise you. It's ultimately Satan, what I'm saying, that's coming up against you. But you got to understand that by you coming into this thing, you're essentially making yourself an enemy to the world, right? But again, this all comes part into counting the cost when you come into this thing, right? But this is not something to dissuade, brothers. This is something to disencourage. This is something to get your minds prepared of what to expect when you're coming into this thing. Because a lot of, brothers will come into this thing thinking that, it's gonna be, you know how Jake is. Jake will find out that the Israelites, and Jake would uh see the brotherhood. Jake would find certain things in the truth that's appealing to them, and they'll think it's all sweet. But then once the bitter comes, once the testing comes, what I'm saying, they don't want to partake in that. But this is something it's like a, what they call it, a rite of passage, right? This is something you have to go through. you know as a matter of fact, before I continue, let me get this in Sirach 2 and 5. Salakia. Sirach 2 and verse 5. It says, For gold is tried in the fire, and acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. You see? So just as gold, gold doesn't come out looking pure when you pull it out the ground. Gold has impurities, has iron, it has all kinds of dross, right? Meaning all these impurities that pollutes the gold, you know, different types of metals, minerals that's up in it that needs to be purified to get that solid piece of gold, pure gold, 100%, right? So you got to put it through that fire, purge it out of all the impurities, melt away all the nickel, the iron, what I'm saying, the whatever the hell, the aluminum, you know, all that stuff has to be purged out, has to be melted away, has to dissolve away in order for it to be that pure piece of solid gold. And the same thing with us. We got to be purged in our own way through the furnace of adversity, through going through different trials and tribulations, right? That's the adversity that's the process of us being made acceptable in the eyes of the heavenly Father. You see? Now when you get Sirach 2 and 1, you scroll to the top, it says, My son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. See, so that's what you gotta prepare for, man. That's something that maybe some Jakes don't really take into full consideration. We got the zeal, brothers got the zeal for this thing. We're ready to serve the Lord. As soon as we heard this thing, man, we were like, damn, we were hyped. But our apostles always told us, man, they, study to show thyself approved, and count the cost, man. really consider what you're getting yourself involved in, because this ain't no light matter. This is to the death. This is to the end, right? You faint in the day of adversity. Let me get that. Because if you faint in the day of adversity, that's it for you, man. Let's get what is it? Proverbs. Yeah, Proverbs 24, I believe. Yeah, Proverbs 24:10. If thou faint in the day of adversity, that strength is small, right? And ultimately, that strength is not talking about your physical strength, because you can be you can be brolic as hell, and that's not going to mean a damn thing. It's ultimately about the spirit, right? It's all about the spirit, because you can have, like I said, a strong brolic guy, and when the testing comes, Jacob's trouble happens, they might fold under all that pressure, man. They didn't have the spirit to guide them. They didn't have that fortitude that was required, right? But going into strength, actually, it's in John 6, as the scriptures talk about um, how the spirit is the one that quickeneth. This is John 6 and 63. It says, "It is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing." You see, so it's the spirit that quickens. Now, of course, that's not to say, forget your health, forget all that. No, the scripture says that the flesh profiteth little, but ultimately, the main thing is the spirit, right? Because you do got to keep your health up, man. A healthy body is a healthy mind, right? You need to take care of that temple, you know. But ultimately, in these times that we're coming into, your spirit, because hey, brothers might not eat every single day. They might not be, have the nourishment, uh, uh, that, or have the nourishment that we have right now. You know what I'm saying? Even though we're gonna be taken care of, but we might not have the diet that we have right now. We can, operate at our maximum. You know, that's whenever we're gonna have to tap into that spirit, man. Rely on the spirit more. And if you don't have the spirit in these times, the Holy Spirit, you're gonna be asked out, man. You're gonna be, man. The scriptures talk about, how the day of the Lord is gonna be, darkness, you know, and a lot of people are gonna be in that darkness. Scriptures talk about how they're gonna be, you know, uh, uh, pretty much groping as in noonday, meaning they're not gonna know where to go. And you're gonna be feeling around like a blind man, feeling around, trying to figure out what direction needs to go. And with all that uncertainty, that's whenever fear starts to creep in. That's whenever doubt starts to creep in. That's whenever panic starts to enter into the minds of the people. See, but that's why the scripture says in Isaiah 33:6 that wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times. So the wisdom and understanding of these scriptures, this was going to keep us stable in these days that we're coming into. So ultimately, again, all going back in a circle, or going full circle, it is the spirit that quickeneth, right? But it says, it is the spirit that quickeneth, the flesh profiteth nothing, right? So this is the strength. This is your source of strength, Jake, right? The Holy Spirit. But it says, the flesh profiteth nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are spirit and they are life. You see? Now, let me go back. I believe I was on Isaiah 59. I don't think I finished that. And I'll go back to that Luke 14 as well. This is Isaiah 59 and verse 15. It says, yea, truth faileth, and he that departed from evil, making himself a prey. Right? And that's the reason why, you made yourself a prey. Like I said, now you have Satan, he's got you in his sights. Now he marked you, he has you in his list of who to fuck with. who to test. You made it on the list. You know what I mean? So now you gotta, really you gotta treat Satan like a sparring partner. And I heard that from the Apostle Rakah. You gotta treat him like a sparring partner, because um, that's essentially kind of what he is. He's helping us become stronger. He's testing us. He's putting us through these tests in hopes to take us out, right? Because that's what you do in sparring, right? Your sparring partner is trying to take your ass out. He's trying to make you, gas out. But with all them, different sparring sessions that you go through in a gym, eventually you start to develop skill, start to get better, start to hone up. You know what I'm saying? Become more hardened. That's essentially what, when you're combating the spiritual demon Satan. That's essentially uh, 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 what you start to attain: skill, more endurance. Now you gotta go to the next level, and the next level, and the next level. It might start off as a physical battle, then it starts ending up a mental battle, then a spiritual battle. Man, it's a spiritual battle. At the end of the day, all in all. But things start to progress even harder and harder. You start going up to these levels, man. Things get harder and harder. But that's the path to the kingdom of heaven, right? As a matter of fact, let's get Matthew 7 and verse 13. It says, enter ye in at the straight gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, right? Meaning it's easy. It's easy to enter to the gate that leads you to destruction, or walk down the path that leads you to destruction. It's broad, it's paved, it's clean, it's swept. Everybody goes down that path. It's the most path traveled, or is the path most traveled, right? But it says, for wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat. But straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth to life. Right? Straight, man. You go into that word straight, pretty much goes into being difficult. It says narrow, straight. This is probably from the base, narrow, from obstacles standing close about, straight. Let me see what else it says. That was pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But pretty much it being difficult. Something that's narrow means that there's no space. There's no wiggle room. It's hard to navigate through it. It's hard to, do much in there. That's essentially, the path that is going to lead to the kingdom of heaven. It's a small sliver that you gotta, walk through in order to, reach the end. Right? Meaning you're gonna have to go through, because the straight gate, or the path, it ain't gonna be, clean. It ain't gonna be swept. It ain't gonna be paved. It's a path least traveled or less traveled. One time I went to uh this one trail over here where I live at, and there's a trail that's like pretty much nobody ever went through it, or at least they hardly ever go through it. And that path was filled with spider webs. It was like branches on the ground, like just everything looked like a mess, right? And it was spiritual because I started thinking about this, and it's just like, in this path that we're going through, you're gonna have to walk through certain obstacles. You're gonna have to go through, maybe some branches on the road. You have to cross over that. You got to, go through a thorn bush. You're gonna have to go through different things, but you got to walk down that path, because that's the only way that's going to lead you to the kingdom of heaven, right? But those obstacles are pretty much those tests, those trials. You might have a little clearing, a small little clearing. You're like, oh damn, finally I got past that obstacle. You're walking, and then you come across another one. This is essentially, the path that the righteous live, man. We go through certain tests. Might get it. Oh, got pulled over by a cop. I got a ticket. Oh, well, now I have a space where I'm doing good. Oh, now I gotta deal with this other problem. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes those problems, are reoccurring. You know what I'm saying? Oh, like it really be Satan. Satan will be like, oh, I didn't. It's been a while since I tried him with this. Let me try him again with that. Because I remember the first time, he was a little wavering. He was wavering a bit. Let me hit him with him. Let me hit him with it again. Let him see if I can take him out with it. Like last time. And surely enough, you remember like, oh, I remember this. Okay, now you got the skills to combat it, right? So continuing on, it says, because straight is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it. Right? Because very few are going to find this path, man. Not everybody's going to be going through this. There's very few of the elect compared to the rest of the world, and compared to 2/3. Because really, this ain't for the heathen, but uh, compared to the rest of Israel, it's 2/3. 2/3 compared to the 1/3. So it's majority of people, majority of Jakes are not going to be able to find this path, right? Or they're going to see it, but they're not going to try. Then they're not going to want to walk it because it's too rigorous. It's too hard. It's too difficult. Because there's a certain standard that you gotta, or there's a certain type of mindset, and also I guess you could say a standard you gotta live up to walk down this path, right? Now, let's see. Let me get. Let me go to Slovakia. Bear with me. I was thinking about this one because ultimately, like I said, this path, like I said, is that furnace of that is going to lead us through different trials and tribulations, different things that we got to prepare for, right? Ultimately, that all goes back to Sirach 2 and 5, right? The furnace of adversity, us being tried and refined, but also, this chastening of the Lord, right? Let me get this. Hebrews 12 and verse 5, it says, and ye have forgotten the exhortation which speaketh unto us as unto children. My son, despise not thou the chastening of the Lord, nor faint when thou art rebuked of him. For whom the Lord loveth, he chasteneth, and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. You see, because the Most High is dealing with us as sons, right? Just like if brothers that have a son, you're not gonna let him do whatever. You're not gonna let him, just get away with things. Or you see him doing something that's wrong, you're not just gonna let him continue to do it. You're gonna correct him. You're gonna check him on it, right? Because you love him, and that's the same way. The Most High is dealing with us. He loves us, so he's gonna correct us, make sure we're doing what's right. If we do wrong, he's gonna whip us, right? But it says, verse 7, if ye endure chastening, the Most High dealeth with you as sons. Right? It says if you endure chastening, man. And not everybody, is willing to endure that chastening. Right? Again, just tying this back with that straight gate. You got to be able to endure that straight gate in order to receive the kingdom of heaven. You got to be able to endure this chastening. You got to be able to carry that cross, man. But it says the Most High dealeth with you as with sons. For what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? Right. Again, the same thing I mentioned. I mentioned if brothers that have a son, you're going to chasten him because he's your son. You love your son. You see? But verse 8, it says, but if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then ye are bastards and not sons. Right? That's why you see a lot of Jake being able to get away over and over again with robberies, murders. Motherfuckers done have like 50 or 40 bodies, and judgment still hasn't reached them yet. You'll be thinking like, man, what the hell? How's this man doing all this wickedness? But ultimately, the Most High has a time and a place that he has reserved for this man to pay for his wickedness, right? He's just allowing it to stack up. But again, that all goes back to them being dealt with as bastards, meaning the Most High ain't dealing with that man, right? This man has judgment waiting for him. But as for us, the Most High is trying to preserve us. He's trying to purify us so that way we can be made acceptable in his eyes, so that whenever the time comes, we won't be destroyed as with the rest of the people, right? We'll be preserved, taken care of, right? Let me get this. Um, Cluster of a grape. Second Ezra 9:20, it says, "So I considered the world, and behold, there was peril because of the devices that were come into it. And I saw," right, there was peril because of all the wickedness, right? But verse 21, "And I saw and spared it greatly, and have kept me a grape of the cluster, and the plant of a great people," right? That grape of the cluster. So one grape out of that cluster is being preserved right now, right? But verse 22, and those that's referring to the elect. But verse 22, "Let the multitude perish then, which were born in vain," right? So everybody else is born in vain. All these people are like I said, the Most High deals with them as bastards. So us that's going through the tribulations, all not tribulations, but yeah, we all go through our own tribulations. But us that's going through these trials, man, we gotta just stand fast, man. We're almost out of here. It ain't gonna be much longer of us suffering, man. The Most High gonna keep us suffering forever. You know, this is just a process, man. Like I said, it's a rite of passage that we got to go through in order for us to pretty much deserve the kingdom of heaven, right? But it says, "Let the multitude perish then, which was born in vain, and let my grape be kept, and my plant for with great labor have I made it perfect." Exactly, man. And that's happening now. Great labor. The Most High put in great labor to make us perfect, man, to keep us, to preserve us, to refine us. You see? So that at the end of the day, we can be, Lord willing, we be those first fruits, that were with Yahweh Shah from the beginning. But he's doing all this so that way we can be preserved when that time comes, the time of great testing, Jacob's trouble, all these things is about to befall the earth, all this evil that we're about to see. The elect are going to be taken care of in that time, and to be made acceptable for that type of mercy, we got to be, saying, going through this shit. I mean, going through this process of being refined, right? But yeah, man, hey, that's pretty much the path, man. That's pretty much the path to discipleship. Oh, as a matter of fact, Salakia, I didn't finish Luke. I didn't go back to that. Let me finish this out, and I'll close it off with this. Luke 14 and 28. That's where I left off. But it says, "For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and counteth the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it?" Right? So you got to count the cost, man. You got to know what you're getting yourself involved in. You got to know that when you come into this thing, you're gonna be tried, man. You're gonna be put to the test. It ain't gonna be a smooth breeze, man. It ain't gonna be a walk in the park, as they say. It's gonna be tumultuous. You're gonna be tested, but with things that you never thought you'd be tested with. You see, but it says, verse 26, verse 29. "Lest happily after he hath laid the foundation and is not able to finish it, all that behold it began to mock him, saying, This man began to build and was not able to finish." Right? Again, you got to cut the cost. Like I mentioned in the beginning, you know, some brothers, they'll probably jump in here thinking that this thing is sweet, this thing is good, and it is. But there's a balance to it. You got the sweet and you got the bitter. Get a taste of the bitter, man, and consider the cost, man. Really consider what you're really getting yourself involved in. So that way you can endure. You can be prepared, you know? So that way whenever testing comes, you'll be like, okay, I meditated upon this. I knew this was coming. Right? And then you bite down. Right? But anyway, that was pretty much it, Like I said, I'm not sure what I'm gonna entitle this, but like I said, something along the lines with, being tested as a disciple, something along like that. But these are the things that we go through to be made acceptable as a disciple of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. All right, so Lord willing, this was edifying. I'm gonna close it off by giving all praises to Yahweh Bahashem Yahushai Bahashem Racha Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who taught me this truth and rule well. Peace and blessings unto the hopeful elect pushing his word throughout the four corners of the earth in truth, righteousness, and sincerity. Until the next time, I'm going to say Shalom. Kwam Yasha Allah.